The world was ending. Not in a dramatic, apocalyptic flash, but in a slow, agonizing decline, a planet suffocating under the weight of its own history. Wars over dwindling resources had left nations fractured, and the environment, long abused, had finally rebelled. Rising oceans swallowed cities whole, once fertile lands turned to dust, and the last desperate attempts to repair the damage had only delayed the inevitable. Earth was dying, and humanity had no choice but to leave. They called it Project Exodus, a desperate bid for survival. For decades, engineers, scientists, and visionaries had worked in secret, constructing massive generation ships capable of carrying the remnants of the human race to the stars. These weren't sleek, elegant vessels like those imagined in science fiction. They were gargantuan, functional monstrosities, flying cities of steel and fire, powered by fusion drives and stocked with everything humanity needed to survive a journey into the unknown. But there was a problem. The ships were ready, but the people weren't. Only the best and brightest had been chosen to board the Exodus fleet. Scientists, engineers, skilled laborers, the ones deemed essential for rebuilding civilization. Billions were left behind to face the cold, slow end. Riots erupted across the planet as people fought for the last tickets off-world. The governments, what little remained of them, responded with force. Blood ran in the streets as the privileged few ascended into the sky, leaving behind a world consumed by chaos. Among those who made it aboard was Admiral Jonathan Grayson, the man chosen to lead the fleet. A seasoned veteran, Grayson had seen the worst of humanity in his years of service. He had fought in the resource wars, watched as nations burned, and knew the depths of desperation. He did not trust easily, but he knew one thing for certain: humanity's survival depended on those ships. But even as Earth shrank behind them, the weight of their departure settled over the fleet like a specter. They weren't just leaving a planet. They were abandoning a home. And for many, the guilt was unbearable. The fleet's course had been set long ago. A cluster of habitable planets in a distant system, uncharted, untouched, a place where humanity could start anew. They called it Horizon. The journey would take decades, but with cryosleep, most wouldn't live to see the stars pass by. Not all, though. Some would stay awake. The Watchers, as they were called, were the caretakers of the fleet, scientists, navigators, and soldiers who would spend their lives ensuring the ships remained operational. They would live and die in the dark void between stars, knowing they would never see the new world they fought to reach. But space was not empty. As the fleet drifted beyond the last remnants of the solar system, their sensors picked up something impossible. A signal. Artificial. Alien. For centuries, humanity had searched the heavens and found only silence. Now, on the edge of oblivion, the silence had been broken. The message was indecipherable, but its meaning was clear: you are not alone. Admiral Grayson gathered his council, scientists, tacticians, and representatives from the civilian sectors. Fear rippled through them. They had planned for many threats, failing systems, internal strife, even rebellion, but not this. Not first contact. Some argued for caution, urging the fleet to avoid the signal at all costs. Others, bolder and perhaps more desperate, saw an opportunity. What if these aliens had the technology they needed? What if, instead of drifting through the void for centuries, they could find a new home now? Grayson listened, but in the end, the decision was his alone. "We find out who they are," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. "If they're hostile, we survive. If they're friendly, we learn. Either way, we don't run." The fleet altered course, moving toward the unknown. And in the shadows of deep space, something watched them come. The signal was old. Ancient. As the fleet closed the distance, the Watchers analyzed every fragment of data they could extract. The transmission wasn't just a single message, it was a pulse, repeating endlessly across space, like an automated distress beacon from a long-dead civilization. Yet something about it unsettled Admiral Jonathan Grayson. The signal wasn't a request for help. It was a warning. Do not come. The words, once decoded, sent a chill through the fleet. Someone, or something, had left this message behind. But why? And more importantly, were they still out there? Grayson knew hesitation could cost them everything. The fleet had already committed to this course, and there was no turning back. If the source of the signal was abandoned, perhaps they could salvage technology, resources, anything to strengthen their people for the journey ahead. If it was inhabited, negotiations could be made. The first scout ship was deployed, a sleek reconnaissance vessel named Pathfinder 1, piloted by Commander Elias Vaughn and his crew of 5. They slipped ahead of the fleet, silent as a whisper against the blackness of space. What they found was not a beacon. It was a graveyard. A ruined space station drifted in orbit around a shattered planet. The world beneath was nothing but scorched ruin, glass fields stretching for miles where oceans once stood, mountain ranges cracked as if struck by some impossible force. And then there were the ships. Massive hulks of alien design floated in the wreckage, their twisted forms bearing scars from a battle fought long ago. Some were still intact, dark and lifeless. Others had been torn apart, their skeletal remains scattering across space like the bones of ancient beasts. It was a battlefield frozen in time, a monument to a war humanity had never known. Vaughn guided Pathfinder 1 carefully between the wrecks, scanning for any signs of movement. None came. Whoever had fought here was long gone. Or so they thought. "Sir," one of the crew whispered, eyes locked on the radar. "We have movement." The ship's scanners pulsed, and something responded. A shadow detached itself from the wreckage, sleek and angular, moving with terrifying precision. It was not debris. It was something else. Something alive. Unidentified vessel approaching fast. Admiral Grayson, watching from the command deck of the flagship Arc Prime, was already issuing orders. "Recall Pathfinder 1. Get them out of there. Now." But it was too late. The unknown ship surged forward, impossibly fast. It wasn't firing weapons, it didn't need to. It simply latched onto the human scout vessel like a predator seizing its prey. A flash of static ripped across the comms. Then silence. "Pathfinder 1 is down," an officer reported grimly. Grayson clenched his jaw. A decision had to be made, and it had to be made fast. If this was a first contact scenario, it had already gone wrong. If this was a hostile force, they had just lost a ship. But one thing was certain, humanity had been noticed. And something in the void was waiting for them. The silence following Pathfinder 1's disappearance was deafening. Admiral Grayson stood rigid on the Arc Prime's command deck, his hands clenched behind his back as he stared at the holographic display. The scout ship was gone, swallowed whole by an unknown entity, and now the fleet had a choice to make. "We have to assume they're still alive," argued Dr. Evelyn Carter, the fleet's chief xeno-researcher. "If that ship was hostile, it would have obliterated them, not captured them." "And if this is some kind of trap," countered Colonel Damian Rourke, head of the fleet's security forces. "We send another ship, we might be feeding it more bodies." Grayson listened, absorbing both perspectives. He agreed with both of them. That was the problem. "Colonel," Grayson said, turning to Rourke, "prepare a retrieval squad. I want a team of our best armed and ready to go in. We don't leave our people behind." Within the hour, a strike team was assembled. The Aegis, a heavily armed tactical corvette, launched from the fleet, carrying Captain Lucia Hayes and a squad of elite operatives. Their mission: infiltrate the battlefield, locate Pathfinder 1, and, if possible, bring her crew back alive. As Aegis approached the debris field, the silence was eerie. Wreckage floated in slow motion, remnants of a forgotten war between alien civilizations. And somewhere in that graveyard, their people were waiting. Then they saw it. The alien vessel that had taken Pathfinder 1 was no ordinary ship, it was a harvester. A biomechanical construct, its hull pulsed with an eerie, organic glow, as though it were alive. Long, spindly tendrils stretched out from its frame, like the legs of an insect, clinging to the captured human vessel. "That thing's not a ship," one of the soldiers muttered. "It's a damn predator." Hayes gave the order, and Aegis closed in. The moment they crossed a certain threshold, the harvester reacted. The glow along its surface intensified, and suddenly, it moved, not like a machine, but like a living thing awakening from dormancy. The ship's tendrils unfurled, revealing dark, gaping structures along its sides. "Get ready for resistance," Hayes shouted. The harvester launched drones, sleek, blade-like machines that cut through the void with unnatural speed. The Aegis' automated turrets spun to life, spitting railgun fire that tore through the first wave, but more kept coming. Meanwhile, Hayes and her team launched from the corvette in EVA suits, jetting toward the harvester while its defenses were distracted. The closer they got, the more unsettling it became. The ship was alive, its surface shifting, watching them. They found an opening, an orifice that had partially sealed over Pathfinder 1's hull. Hayes didn't hesitate. She set a charge, blasted through the organic barrier, and the team surged inside. The interior was worse. The walls pulsed with a sickly bioluminescence, and the air, somehow present despite the vacuum, was thick with the scent of decay. They pressed forward, weapons raised, moving through narrow passageways that felt more like veins than corridors. Then they heard it. A voice. Human. They burst into a chamber where Pathfinder 1's crew was restrained, held in grotesque tendrils that pulsed around their bodies. Commander Vaughn was barely conscious, his face pale, his body weak. The others were in similar condition, as if something had been extracting from them. Hayes cut them loose, her heart pounding. "We've got them." Then the walls screamed. A deep, guttural howl reverberated through the ship as something woke up. "Move! Now!" As they carried the weakened crew toward the breach, the walls began to shift. The harvester was closing itself, trying to trap them inside. Strange, insectoid creatures poured from the darkness, shrieking as they lunged toward the humans. Hayes threw a grenade, blasting a hole through the biomass. "Go! Go!" The team rocketed into the void just as Aegis fired a precision strike at the harvester. The explosion tore through the organic mass, and Hayes felt the heat of the blast even through her suit. As the retrieval team docked, Grayson received the report. They had survivors, but barely. The alien vessel had been feeding off them. Studying them. And worst of all, Vaughn had whispered something before passing out. It sent a signal. Grayson's blood ran cold. The harvester hadn't just woken up. It had called for others. And whatever had built these things was coming. The fleet was no longer alone. In the hours following Pathfinder 1's rescue, the Watchers detected an anomaly in deep space, an energy signature that had not been there before. Something immense was moving toward them, emerging from the void like a leviathan rising from the deep. The signal Vaughn had spoken of had been received. Admiral Grayson stood on the bridge of Arc Prime, watching the tactical displays. A shape was forming beyond the edge of their long-range scanners, still too distant to fully analyze, but it was big. Too big. "We estimate it'll be in visual range within the hour," said Lieutenant Amina Patel, the fleet's lead navigator. "Mass readings suggest a structure the size of a small moon. A ship the size of a moon." A cold silence spread through the command deck. The fleet was built to survive, not to wage war. They had weapons, yes, but they were meant to defend against small-scale threats, rogue asteroids, internal mutinies, possible pirate factions. Not this. "We need to leave," Dr. Evelyn Carter said, her voice calm but firm. "Whatever this is, it's beyond us." The fleet was not designed to fight. "We can't outrun it," countered Colonel Damian Rourke, arms crossed over his broad chest. "Not with our slower ships. If we run, we die tired." Grayson exhaled slowly. Every instinct told him to retreat, to take the fleet and flee into the dark. But Rourke was right, there was no running from something like this. "Then we prepare to fight," he said, making the hardest decision of his life. Across the fleet, crews scrambled to battle stations. Defense platforms were activated, ships repositioned into a formation that would allow them to concentrate fire if necessary. The civilian sectors were locked down, with families and children ushered into the deepest sections of the generation ships. And then, the thing emerged. The first image came from Sentinel-9, a long-range probe stationed on the fleet's outer perimeter. The feed flickered for a moment before stabilizing. What they saw was not a ship. It was a construct, a colossal, biomechanical entity that pulsed with a dull, sickly glow. Jagged towers jutted from its surface like the bones of a forgotten god, and its hull, if it could be called that, was layered with writhing tendrils that moved like deep-sea creatures. And then it did something no one expected. It spoke. Not in words. Not in sound. But in thought. A wave of pressure crashed through the minds of every sentient being in the fleet, a sensation both alien and predatory. It was not a language so much as an understanding, forced into their consciousness with brutal efficiency. You are young. 1,000 voices spoke as one. Cold. Ancient. Unimpressed. You have no claim here. Grayson gritted his teeth, pushing back against the oppressive force invading his thoughts. He had faced death before, but never like this, never as an ant standing before a storm. Open a channel, he ordered. Let's see if it listens. The comms officer hesitated, but obeyed. Grayson straightened, his voice iron. This is Admiral Jonathan Grayson of the Exodus Fleet. We are refugees from a dying world, seeking a home among the stars. We mean no harm. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, the entity replied. Your kind is known to us. Grayson felt his breath hitch. That was impossible. Humanity had never encountered another intelligent species before. Unless you were allowed to exist in your cradle. You were given time to fade. A chill ran through the bridge crew. This thing, whatever it was, had been watching Earth. Yet you persist. And now, you trespass. Grayson's fingers curled into a fist. He had heard enough. We are not here to submit, he said, voice sharp. If you intend to destroy us, know this, we will not die quietly. Silence. And then, for the first time, the entity's tone shifted. Interesting. The lights flickered across the fleet as a new pulse of energy radiated from the construct. Grayson turned to Rourke. Battle stations. Then, in the depths of space, the storm came. The first strike came without warning. A beam of crackling energy, dark and unnatural, lanced from the colossal construct. It did not miss, it simply erased. One of the smaller colony ships, the Hope's Dawn, vanished in an instant, its bulk consumed by the attack. There was no explosion, no debris, just nothingness where it had been. Screams filled the comms. Families aboard the other ships panicked. The Exodus fleet had never known war on this scale. But Admiral Jonathan Grayson had. Fire, he roared. The fleet retaliated. Every ship capable of combat unleashed a torrent of kinetic slugs, railgun rounds, and missile barrages at the entity. The Arc Prime's main gun, a prototype mass driver, discharged a tungsten slug the size of a skyscraper straight into the construct center. The impact was immense. The construct shuddered, its exterior rippling like a stone striking water. The glow across its body dimmed. And for a moment, just a moment, humanity struck back against the dark. Then it began to change. The entity's structure shifted, its wounds sealing, its tendrils thickening into jagged appendages that extended outward. The thing was adapting. Learning. Grayson saw it instantly. We're feeding it data, he muttered. His mind raced. The construct wasn't just repairing itself, it was optimizing. Every impact, every missile detonation, every human weapon was teaching it how to fight them better. We need to hit it with something it doesn't expect. Colonel Rourke was already moving, barking orders into his comm, "We still have one ace up our sleeve, the Ragnarok warheads, A hush fell over the bridge. The Ragnarok-class warheads were humanity's last resort weapons, experimental fusion bombs designed to crack open planets. They were meant for terraforming dead worlds, not warfare. Now, they were all that stood between survival and annihilation. "Load them," Grayson ordered, his voice grim. "And pray it's enough. The last stand." On the Aegis, Captain Lucia Hayes and her strike team suited up for what was effectively a suicide mission. They would fly into the heart of the battle and deliver the warheads, manually. The construct's defenses had grown stronger. Its drones now moved with terrifying precision, intercepting attacks before they landed. It was no longer just reacting. It was anticipating. "This is insane," one of Hayes' soldiers muttered, checking his gear. "We're going right into the mouth of the beast." "That's exactly why we're going to win," Hayes shot back. "Because it doesn't think we're that crazy." Their ship, repurposed for this one final task, launched into hell. Drones swarmed them instantly. Railguns on Aegis fired non-stop, but there were too many. Hayes' pilot, Lieutenant Jack Nolan, was sweating through his flight suit. "Hold tight, I'm gonna do something stupid, He cut the engines. Momentum carried them forward, but to the enemy, they looked dead in the water. The drones hesitated, just long enough for Nolan to flip the ship manually and reignite the thrusters, slipping through the gaps in their formation. They breached the construct's surface. "Deploying warheads," Hayes called. The charges, already primed, locked into place on key points along the entity's structure. A new voice echoed in their minds. Not the construct. Something else. Fascinating. Something deeper was watching. Studying. Hayes didn't care. Detonating in 5, 4. The construct lashed out, sensing the threat. A tendril shot toward them. *3, 2, 1, fire, A blinding flash consumed the entire battlefield. The aftermath. When the light faded, the construct was collapsing. Its immense form cracked apart, its biomechanical flesh dissolving into the void. The entity that had spoken was silent. The fleet watched, breathless. Had it worked? Then, the scanners flickered. One final transmission bled through their systems, a whisper from something far beyond them. "You were meant to fade." The construct imploded, pulled into itself before vanishing entirely. And then, for the first time in weeks, the void was silent. Humanity had won. But Grayson wasn't celebrating. Because the way that final message was spoken. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a promise. The battlefield was silent, but the war wasn't over. In the aftermath of the construct's destruction, the Exodus fleet hung in the void, battered but alive. The enemy had been defeated, but not truly killed. Its final message echoed in Admiral Grayson's mind. "You were meant to fade." That wasn't a simple statement. It was doctrine. Humanity had been permitted to exist, not welcomed. And now, by surviving, they had drawn attention. On the bridge of Arc Prime, the fleet's top officers gathered to analyze the wreckage. Or rather, the lack of wreckage. "This thing didn't just explode," Dr. Evelyn Carter said, scanning the results. "It was reclaimed." Grayson frowned. Reclaimed by what? Carter hesitated. Not by something. By itself. She pulled up the sensor data. What little debris remained from the construct had dissolved into self-replicating nanite structures, vanishing into the void. The ship wasn't just a weapon, she continued. It was a remnant, a fragment of something older, something still functioning on autopilot. She turned to Grayson, her expression grim. This was a warning system. And now that we've beaten it, something else has been alerted. A siren, left behind by a long-dead empire. And they had just rung it. ### the hidden archive. Days later, deep in the wreckage field where they first found Pathfinder 1, a team of engineers discovered something extraordinary. A derelict station, ancient beyond measure. Unlike the construct, this was not biomechanical, it was artificial. Built. Structured. Designed. And it was human-sized. Captain Lucia Hayes led the exploratory team inside, stepping through rusted corridors that had not been touched for millennia. Strange symbols lined the walls, eerily familiar, yet not quite. The air was thin but breathable, an artificial atmosphere maintained by ancient, sputtering generators. Then they reached the core chamber. A holographic console, still active. Hayes swallowed. "Control, we just found something big." The console recognized them. And it began to speak. ### the first exiles. The voice was ancient, layered, almost as if multiple speakers spoke as one. But its words were clear. Designation, Arc Prime. Confirmed, human, ****. The team exchanged uneasy glances. This thing knew what they were. Accessing records. Reconstructing, ****. A projection flickered to life, a vast archive of images and symbols. It showed a war. Not one fought by humans. A war that predated them. A war between a species known as the Architects and a force simply labeled as the Harvesters. The Architects were an advanced civilization, spanning entire galaxies. They built wonders, they seeded life, they shaped the stars themselves. But they made one fatal mistake. They created the Harvesters. Artificial entities designed to maintain balance, to prune species that grew too fast, too reckless. But something went wrong. The Harvesters turned on their makers, consuming them. The war was devastating, spanning eons. In their final act, the Architects did the only thing they could. They hid their last creations. Humanity wasn't discovered by accident. They were hidden. Earth had been a sanctuary world, placed under concealment to allow humans to grow naturally, without interference. The Architects had hoped their hidden children might one day surpass them. But now, the Harvesters had found them. The station's holographic voice spoke its final words. "You are the last. If you fall, there will be nothing left. ###, a choice to make." Back aboard Arc Prime, Grayson, Carter, Rourke, and Hayes stood in stunned silence as they processed the truth. Humanity had not won the battle. They had only delayed the inevitable. The Harvesters were still out there. And now, they knew humanity existed. Rourke broke the silence first. "Then we need to prepare." Carter looked at him. "Prepare? For what?" "For war." Grayson exhaled. "No. Not yet." He turned to Carter. "Can we use this station? Learn from it?" She nodded. If this place belonged to the Architects, then their knowledge might still be here. "We don't just need to prepare, we need to evolve." Grayson turned to look out into the void. Humanity had been given a chance. They had to make a choice. Flee into the unknown, forever running from the storm. Or become the storm themselves. He already knew the answer. "Then we learn," he said. "And when they come back, we show them what humanity really is, ****. Humanity had a choice. They could flee, as they always had, from one dying world to another, scraping by in the void. Or they could stand. Admiral Jonathan Grayson had never been one to run. Inside the ancient station, humanity had uncovered something more valuable than any world, any resource, ****, knowledge ****. The Architects, the ones who had hidden humanity, had left behind more than a warning. They had left the blueprints of their own power. And now, for the first time in their history, humans would no longer fight with desperation. They would fight with purpose. ###, the birth of the Titan fleet. The Exodus fleet transformed. Every ship that had once been built to flee was now reforged for war. The Ark Prime became the first of the Titan-class battleships, its civilian modules stripped away and replaced with planetary-scale weaponry. Colony ships became carriers, freighters became war factories, and what few combat vessels they had became the blueprint for an entirely new navy. And then there were the Titans. The station's archives contained architect-level schematics, machines that had never been built by human hands before. Gigantic warforms, living battleships, and technology so advanced it blurred the line between biology and machinery. Using these designs, humanity created its first true superweapon. The Nemesis Protocol. An AI-driven war construct, built not just to destroy, but to counter-adapt against the Harvesters. No longer would humanity fight enemies that learned faster than them, **** humanity would become the ones who evolved, ****. For the first time, they were not simply surviving. They were ascending. ###The Harbinger returns. It began with a whisper in the void. The same energy signature as before. A harvester construct, but this one was larger. More advanced. Humanity had killed one before. The harvesters had adapted. But so had humanity. Grayson stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, now the flagship of the fleet. He looked at the incoming entity, an unfathomable, shifting mass of dark metal and living energy, larger than an entire planetary moon. "Weapons online?" he asked. "All Titans armed and ready," Rourke confirmed. "Then let's see if they can adapt to this." The battle began. The Harvester entity struck first, unleashing its void lances, its reality-breaking weapons designed to erase matter itself. But this time, humanity did not break. The Nemesis absorbed the attack, redirecting the energy through architect shielding. The Titan fleet moved in perfect formation, responding not just with firepower, but with tactical precision guided by the AI war constructs. Humanity was no longer fighting like prey. They were fighting like predators. The first Titan, Goliath, unleashed its graviton hammer, crushing a section of the Harvester's form into a singularity. The Aegis, now a command carrier, released its dreadnought strike craft, piloted by enhanced, cyber-linked soldiers, ****, the first of the post-human legion ****. And then, the Nemesis Protocol activated. Using the Architect's technology, the AI learned in real time, counter-adapting against the Harvester's every move. The entity that had once overwhelmed them with superior evolution now found itself on the defensive. For the first time in untold millennia, a Harvester was outmatched. ###The dawn of the Galactic Empire. The battle was long, but its outcome was never in doubt. When the Harvester entity collapsed, screaming into the void, the Exodus fleet did not celebrate. Because they knew what this meant. If this was just one of the scouts, the first sent to confirm humanity's survival, then the real war was still coming. But this time, they would not wait for extinction. Humanity had been meant to fade, hidden away like a lost artifact of a dead race. Instead, they had risen. Admiral Grayson turned to his officers. "We take the fight to them," he said, his voice like steel. "No more running. No more waiting." He looked out into the void, where the architects had once ruled. Their empire had fallen. But another was about to rise. A new empire. A human empire. And when the Harvesters came back, they would no longer find frightened refugees. They would find conquerors. ###Epilogue, the signal. Light years away, something stirred. A pulse spread through the fabric of the galaxy, an ancient warning triggered for the first time in thousands of years. And in the dark corners of the universe, where the last remnants of the Harvesters lurked, something answered. A single thought, echoing across the void. Humanity has awakened. Prepare the Legion.